We are missing Bobby Stein. I know he's in the building. I just don't see him on the floor.
He had a call and might be a couple minutes late.
Okay.
He's going to come in.
But we have quorum, and so, Mr. Chair, we're good to start if you'd like.
Okay. Good morning. Call the meeting of JEA to order. Let us begin with a moment of reflection. Please bow your heads. Thank you. Are there any introductions that need to be made?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I don't know that Landon on the WebEx can hear us. Landon, can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the chair has opened the meeting. I think maybe I've got some feedback coming from a delayed source somehow.
Yeah, your audio and video from T19 is coming in loud and clear.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Oh, excuse me. The first order of business is to adopt the agenda. Can we get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Safety, Steve?
Chairman Baker, Stephen Bourget, JEA Director of Risk Management. In the event there's an emergency, please dial 911. Emergency evacuation route is directly behind me to the stairwell. We assemble across the street at the Baptist parking lot. Your safety partners to your right. Medical conditions, anybody who has or needs CPR, we have people available for that. Hazard and situational awareness, be careful of trips, falls, tripping hazards, and please mute all your cell phones. The safety moment is regarding fall protection, which is the most important article for our people in the field. Planning is the most important part in that we are ahead of the job, perform without incident, identifying potential fall hazards, looking for the fall hazards once we're on site, providing the correct equipment, including guardrails, full body harness, lanyards, etc., training all of our employees for safe and proper use of said equipment, practicing good housekeeping and keeping work areas free from trip hazards, and enforcing fall protection safety policies, tying off to a specific area and making sure that those areas are secure. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. The next agenda item is council liaison comments. Randy?
Hey, good morning. Nice to see everyone. Just a quick update. Our biggest issue before the city council right now, as everyone knows, is the gas tax. We will be meeting as a committee of the whole again on Thursday. The way this will, if it passes, there will be a connection with the JEA, and that will consist of the Bay Street corridor and the commitment that the JEA has talked about in the past with the city with regards to financial contribution. I think Jay may talk about that a little bit. And then the septic tanks, if it were to pass, there's a $100 million parallel legislation that's coming in as well in relation to the gas tax. And finally, with the city council tonight is dealing with JSUPs, and interestingly enough, we've looked at how the JEA does it, and it's a very good model for us to follow as a, from the perspective of the city as a whole. And we're looking into the definition of who can qualify to be a JSUP, and should you include the value of the business itself in that process. So more to come on that, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your being here.
Thank you.
Any comments from the public?
I don't believe we have any speaker cards. Have there been any public comments that have been sent in through the email? And at this time, we'll get Landon to walk us through whether or not we have anybody online on the WebEx to have a public comment. Landon?
Thank you. For those that have joined us via WebEx, it is now your time for public comments. If you have joined us via an audio telephone, you may go ahead and press *6 to unmute your line. We have also opened up today's chat session. If you'd like to go ahead and type in a public comment for us to read, you may go ahead and proceed now. Seeing no hands raised or anything in the chat, I will go ahead and turn it back over to y'all. Thank you.
Thank you. Jay, could you give us your report, please?
Thank you very much. So today is April 27th, and on April 27th, 2011, over 200 tornadoes tore through the southeast United States. 15 of them were major, EF4, EF5. There were over 300 people killed. I was at Huntsville Utilities that day, and several of the major tornadoes came through Huntsville and our territory. We lost 100% of our power to all of our customers. And it was a public emergency and a public crisis. And as often the case, it sounded like, read like, and acted like an electric emergency, but keeping the water on and running was what we had to do to keep it from being a public health crisis too. There's these specific events in maybe anybody's career, but certainly in a utility career, that provide some sort of clarity on what we do and why we do it. So I remember April 27th, 10 years ago today, vividly, in part because of the destruction, but mostly because of the brave response that the people, not only at Huntsville Utilities, but in the region, gave from a great people that were dedicated to that community. And I think and believe that we have the same spirit here. I'm honored to be a part of this team, and I want to thank the employees, the staff, as they are getting ready for hurricane season. We're actively preparing for that, and we have tabletop exercises in May to be prepared for hurricane season as it kicks off in June. So today is I won't often talk about other utilities whenever we come to this board meeting, but April 27th was a big day for me in my career and my time. So last month I shared with you our focus is going to remain on developing an unbeatable team, delivering business excellence, and earning customer loyalty. To the building an unbeatable team portion later today, we're going to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have work to do in that area because treating each other with courtesy and respect means that every person counts every day. We're going to spend that time discussing some of the beginnings of our efforts in that area today, because we want to have outcomes of our diversity, equity, inclusion effort to reflect the courtesy and respect that I talk about each week and each day as when we're working. We're also working to fill the leadership team and expanding, looking for other key roles within economic development, communications, and corporate strategy over the coming months. Another piece of this is focusing on the talent that we have in-house and growing talent and spending more time having honest conversations about how we're going to do that. You're going to continue to hear me talk about working and thinking about the little things because those little things become big things. Being easier to do business with each other internally is one of the things that I think we need to do. We talk about the vendors and we talk about externally. We're also got to be a little bit easier to work with each other. I've been talking to the team about providing employees freedom and responsibility to work on compliance and excellence, placing high standards on ethics and personal responsibility to make us worthy of the trust our customers, our vendors, our partners, and each other put in us. The easier we are to do business with each other, then it's easier for us to do things like offer the early retirement offering. It's something that I pushed back on to begin with because it's going to cause some stress to our environment, to the work. And we're having conversations now with interested employees. They have the opportunity to retire early, and we are making sure that we are transferring knowledge so that we don't overburden the employees that stay here. That limited retirement option opens for employees May 1st. They have to make the decision between May 1st and June 30th. And then once they've indicated that they want to retire and signed up with the city, that decision's irrevocable, and they can retire anytime between June 1st and October 31st. So I expect that we'll know more about that in the next month or so. I am pleased with our commitment, JEA's commitment to the safety of our teammates. With regard to COVID, we are continuing to follow protocol of wearing masks and social distancing, and we'll keep doing that as we prepare to return to work, to the office in a methodical and slowly return July 1. We will continue to be in a hybrid environment past that, and we've got a team looking at how we can do that. We're very excited and proud that we were able to partner with Southeastern Grocers to make vaccination appointments available, and about 200 employees and contractors were able to take advantage of that. And we are updating our safety procedures and protocols as we transition away from our COVID strategy into the new normal of how we're going to work. We're also giving back to the community and improving lives. Nearly $245,000 that JEA employees raised in this year's United Way Employee Giving Campaign. And I'd like to thank Jackie Scheel, who you met a couple of board meetings ago. In addition to being the director of water, wastewater reuse, delivery, and collection, she took the lead on our United Way campaign this year. And what a year it was to take that role on. So I'd like to thank her for her leadership and the effort of all the employees at JEA to support the community in that way. We also were able to volunteer for the first time we've been doing volunteer work virtually for the last year. And in March, we were able to have our first in-person community project since the pandemic began, with more than 50 employees serving in the 26th annual St. Johns River cleanup to help support the environment. Later today, in the customer loyalty section, you'll hear a little bit about our second wave of customer satisfaction results. We have a significant improvement in this quarter. Our year-to-date numbers still put us in the fourth quartile, but I'm proud of the work that our team has done, and you'll see the reflection of that work in these numbers. The legislature has nearly completed work on the reclaimed water bill that we discussed last month, and we'll send it over to the governor's office for signature. I appreciate the board, the city council, the Chamber of Commerce, who all sent resolutions on this matter. The impacts to JEA significantly accelerate water and wastewater projects around this reclaimed water, but it is consistent with what we are doing in our integrated resource plan, our water resource plan, but it will cost upwards of $2 billion and move that forward. The outcome of the legislation did push it to 2032, which is better than where we were last month and better than the original draft. So thank you for all the support that you all gave to that effort. We talked briefly last month about the broadband internet infrastructure bill, except I think I called it the pole attachment bill, but it's related to broadband. That has been amended significantly to remove some of the things that were troubling to us. The Florida Municipal Electric Association has kept us in the loop, and FMEA has been instrumental in updating that process with the bill sponsors. And I appreciate the work that Amy Zubili and her team at FMEA have done to keep us in that loop to make the legislation better for us and all of the public power communities in Florida. April is Water Conservation Month. JEA's customer and community engagement team has been highlighting that on social media, helping people know ways that they can save money and protect the environment. We're also encouraging customers that have the option to do this to sign up for email, text, and voice alerts that will include leak detection warnings, which is a big deal. If you know about that ahead of time, then it helps the environment and it saves money. April 22nd was Earth Day, and it's that day that the Biden administration announced the goal to reduce carbon emissions by 50% by 2035 from the 2005 levels. At JEA, ensuring that our environment is protected and preserved is one of the very core businesses that we do. Since 2005, we have reduced carbon emissions by over 40% and will reach 60% by 2025. That's ahead of the schedule that's set by the federal government. It's equivalent to taking 1.7 million cars off the road each year, and it's an effort that shows how we are building a more environmental community and focused on the environment in everything we do. JEA continues to bring cost-effective, reliable power, water, wastewater services to the people of Northeast Florida. We had some derate issues at the Northside Generation Station, which you'll see in our metrics in our operations report, but overall I'm pleased with our performance, both from financial health and operational excellence standpoints, and we'll get into more details of that later today. Last month I also talked about potential delays with Plant Vogtle. The targeted in-service date for Vogtle Unit 3 has moved out to December 2021, and the schedule continues to be challenged. And I have no reason to expect that the productivity or schedule will do anything but increase the financial impacts to JEA. We're looking at that, and we'll have a more detailed review of the impacts of that at the Finance and Audit Committee as we talk about budgets and rates moving forward. Councilwoman DeFore mentioned the septic tank phase-out program, and over the past 5 years, JEA has committed $30.5 million and recently committed an additional $12.5 million towards that effort. We also fund about $1.5 million a year for project management activities. We're going to continue to work with the city as they find funding to finish the Beverly Hills subdivision. The city is working with JTA, Jacksonville Transportation Authority, on increasing the gas tax that will free up some money to fund part of the septic tank program. We remain committed to continue to work with the city to solve this historical issue. We've been working with staff to come up with the best way to implement the plan once the city decides on the funding mechanisms. Over the past couple of years, the Jacksonville Transportation Authority has worked with JEA to assist with a grant for an autonomous vehicle route along Bay Street corridor you'll hear about periodically. JEA has a letter of commitment supporting the grant where we agreed to install fiber, wireless access points, and several electric vehicles that's consistent with our charter mission and goals. And we're going to remain committed to helping support this as they move forward with the grant. If the grant is funded, then we will honor this. I've asked OGC to create an updated memorandum of understanding that we will bring to the board for consideration at future meeting to be sure that everyone understands exactly what we're doing. The St. Johns River Water Management District recently, and I appreciate that we have a representative from Government Affairs from the St. Johns River Water Management District here today, and Jeff Sample is here with us. They have changed and approved some minimum flow levels that later today we're going to talk a little bit about. The previous draft from December 2020 has changed dramatically in our opinion and the way that they've proceeded with this. And so we're going to talk to you a little bit about what that project is, what the impact is to us, and what the financial impact will be to our customers. While we support the project because environmental activities is core to what we do, we have to do that with the customers in mind and what the financial impact might be. Later today, we're going to move into a shade meeting, closed session, to discuss cybersecurity and how JEA protects its infrastructure. This is a critical discussion and will just be a baseline for future discussions that we have. And with that, I want to say thank you for continued opportunity to be here with you, and thank you for your service. I'm pleased and excited to be here, and we are maybe next month we have all 7 board members in one spot, but we're making progress every single month. So thank you for being here, each one of you, and for your service. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you and answer any questions.
Thank you, Jay. Any questions? Okay, it's a great report. We'll move to the consent agenda. The first item is the board meeting minutes of March 23rd. Can we get approval of that?
So moved.
Is there a second? Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it passes unanimously. Jody, do you know, can you explain the assignment rights and real property sale?
Yeah, and I apologize. I probably should have weighed in just a moment ago about the consent agenda as far as adopting both of those action items under one consent, but because you've already done the minutes separate, the other thing on the consent was the clarifying assignment rights that would have been in your package, and there's a resolution about that real estate transaction. If you don't have any questions about it or any other thoughts, you can entertain a second motion for that item.
Questions? Can we have a motion?
So move.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We'll move now to the items for board consideration. If you'll look at your agenda, you'll see that we classify these things as consistent with our strategic plan. The first, under the unbeatable team heading, is the safety performance. Tony Long?
Thank you, Chair Baker and members of the board. Taking a look at our primary lagging performance safety indicator, you can see that our recordable incident rate continues to remain at a historical low. Certainly pleased to report that we ended the second quarter with an incident frequency rate of 0.6, which, as noted, is extremely below the listed industry averages there. So we're certainly proud of that. And then we fully expect that these favorable trends will continue for the definable future. Chair Baker, prior to turning it back over to you, I'd like to take a moment to recognize our facilities team who recently achieved 2,000 safe work days without an OSHA-defined recordable incident. Now, this is certainly an impressive accomplishment, especially when taking into consideration that this team drove approximately 1.6 million miles, working on over 16,000 assets and completing approximately 56,000 work orders over this 5.5-year period. And so we are all certainly very proud of this team for their very noteworthy accomplishments. So we do hope that they'll keep up the safe work. So, thank you, Chair Baker.
Thank you for sharing that. Questions of Tony? If not, we'll move to the JCEB quarterly report. Rita Scott?
Good morning, Chair Baker and board members. It's always a pleasure to present our quarterly JCEB report. As of second quarter, we are on target towards achieving our JCEB goal. As you can see, to date, we have achieved 50% of the goal, or $8.9 million in actual spend to our JCEB vendors. To further break down this number, $4.1 million represents the prime spend, and $4 million represents the subcontractor spend. Each year, the number of JCEB vendors we work with is dependent upon the number of active projects we have going on. As of second quarter, we are currently working with 81 JCEB vendors, of which 38 are prime vendors. We also track the diversity mix of JCEB vendors we are currently working with. The chart on the bottom provides a breakdown by small business type and the number of vendors in each category. Another metric we track on the JCEB scorecard is the number of contracts awarded to our JCEB vendors. These contracts are both prime and subcontractor opportunities. As contracts are awarded to a JCEB vendor or a JCEB requirement associated with the project, they will be captured on this report. As of second quarter, 63 contracts have been awarded to the JCEB vendors, of which 5 are prime opportunities. The value of these projects total $12.1 million, which will be realized over a 1 to 5 year time frame, depending on the contract term. Most of the contracts awarded fall within our facilities and water wastewater categories. The chart illustrates the number of contract awards, also known as the procurement method, that was used for each contract award. During the presentation in January, there was a request from the board to hear from some of our JCEB vendors. I'm very happy to share with you today 3 vendors that have worked with JEA to talk about their overall experience. The JSUB vendors in the spotlight today include Four Waters Engineering Incorporated, Onus Corporation, and GM Hill Engineering Incorporated. I'm going to share a video with you momentarily.
Four Waters Engineering is an environmental and civil engineering firm that specializes in aging utility infrastructure. The company became a JEA JSEB in 2015 and later won a continuing contract for pipeline work and manhole evaluations.
It was a real benefit to us because typically, we've got to compete with everybody else and go up against the big firms. And although we do good work and put out quality products, we don't always have the depth of personnel that these large firms have.
Brian says what she and her partners like most about JEA is how easy it is to do business with.
So on the business side, incredible to work with. Not all our clients pay as quickly as JEA does. On the staffing side, JEA's personnel, their project managers are very professional.
As part of a small project we did today, this is a break room.
Bandele Onasanya is an engineer from Nigeria who owns a general contracting company. He's done a lot of work in the JEA Tower and the JEA Customer Center. Sometimes the work is planned, like painting the 16th floor or installing safety railing in the parking garage. Sometimes the work is more urgent, like installing plexiglass panels in the Customer Center during COVID. Onasanya says steady work from JEA's JSEB program has kept his company running during the pandemic.
We're able to maintain our workforce because a lot of small projects came from JEA.
Gina Hill started her design-build firm at her kitchen table in 2004. 4 years later, after becoming a JEA JSEB, her company took off.
It's been a huge help for us because it's introduced us to larger firms. And as a small business, we've had the opportunity to work on larger projects.
These days, GM Hill has 58 employees and 6 offices on the East Coast. The company finished 17th on a list of fastest growing firms in Jacksonville. Last August, GM Hill graduated from the JEA JSEB program because revenues exceeded allowable limits.
We've been very blessed to be able to continue on a growth projection. We're looking at moving into a new office space this year. Just hired a new COO that'll be starting in about 3 weeks. So a lot of good positive things going on for us.
We're very proud of our JSEB vendors that we're working with. To wrap things up, the procurement department is putting forth an effort to better understand the diversity makeup of the current supply network. In March, a survey was sent to all our existing suppliers to capture their diversity information. This information will be uploaded to our Oracle system to assist in tracking our non-JSUB minority vendor spend. Additionally, as we bring on new suppliers to JEA, the vendor forms they usually complete now request them to provide their diversity information such as gender and ethnicity. Included on the form is a definition of what we mean by a minority business owner, which is defined as an individual who owns, operates, and controls at least 51% of the business and is a member of a minority group. Minority groups include African American, Asian Indian, Asian Pacific, Hispanic, and Native American. Veteran-owned businesses are being tracked as well. We also reach out to other utilities and companies to benchmark against their supplier diversity programs. We want to understand their programs and determine what we can do to further to develop our program. Other efforts to expand supplier diversity include exploring software options to assist in managing the diverse supplier spend and to have the ability to obtain data on diverse businesses that can do business with JEA. Our overall goal is to grow the minority spend and increase the number of minority suppliers we're doing business with. In addition to providing the Doing Business with JEA workshop, we will investigate creative ways to expand the education for the minority supplier community. And lastly, our best practice recommendations from Blue Borough, we will look at adjusting our minimum requirements and insurance requirements to create a more inclusive environment to make it easier to do business with JEA for all suppliers. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. Questions?
Not a question, just thank you. You know, Rita and Jay, great report. Learning a bit more about the JSEB businesses and what they do for JEA and what they do for the community, as well as how working with JEA and this program has positively impacted their business and their workforce. Really inspiring. Appreciate it very much. Well done.
Well, I think it was Tom's idea to do the video. Thank you, Tom. That was awesome. I love to see that we're paying on time, which is important to a small business, and that we're graduating people, you know, that we're inspecting their growth and helping them along the way. On the education front, since one of our focuses is economic development, are we educating them around access to capital? Because that tends to be a challenge with small and emerging businesses.
So I know that the city is in the process of revamping the JSEB program, and I believe the Access to Capital program is being brought up under the Office of Economic Development. And so I think there's going to be a renewed focus on access to capital. And certainly I'll be an advocate for that to educate our JSEBs on that program.
No, that's great. Thank you, Rita. And then one last question. How frequently do we inspect the available spend that we have in the system? Is that an annual thing, or is that on a different cycle?
Yes, we look at it annually. At the beginning of the fiscal year, we will look at all of the projects and identify which projects we believe we can have JSEB participation. From there, we will come up with our JSEB goal.
Great, thank you. Great work.
Thank you so much.
Other questions? Thank you, Tom. That really was a great idea to have that. It brings it home.
Appreciate that.
Very neat. We'll move to diversity, equity, and inclusion. David Emanuel.
Thank you, Chair Baker and esteemed board members. I'd like to tell you that we are excited about the start of our program. We are looking at this as the first of a series of conversations that we'll bring to you about our efforts. We believe that it is more than just the numbers, and we believe that we are doing a lot of things in our with and through our employees that we would like to highlight. And what we found in just beginning is that we have a lot of different efforts that we need to coordinate better. And so that is part of getting everything aligned, is to get that situation and get our effort coordinated. Why is diversity important? I think it's because it's the right thing to do. I think diverse companies, diverse organizations are stronger, and they are more inclusive of everybody contributing. And as Jay always says, it is a great sign of a respectful community. When we think about where we are today, and that's the middle section of that of the slide, our numbers are our numbers. The female percentage at 22%, the people of color percentage at 25%, the veterans at 19%. When we look at those as juxtaposed with the city, and those are all of the city's numbers, not just the eligible. With the female and people of color, we're a little short, but we will work on that. When we look at the veterans, we are ahead of schedule. and with our review and revamp of our talent acquisition processes, we look to improve those numbers. What we're doing right now is evaluating our past successes, learning our current state, and really diving into our metrics and really understanding our metrics and where it's going to be positive to make changes. We've engaged in internal stakeholders. We've had meetings with folks that are interested, with folks that we want to see if they're interested. Those discussions have started, and we will continue to work on them. We're also, we've hired a female-owned contractor to help us find out what people are doing beyond our community and utilities and other businesses. But Jay and I are also meeting with local companies that are doing this very well to see how they've done it, to see how they're structured, to learn anything we can in putting together our program. We want to build a strategy that makes Jacksonville proud. And we believe that communication is very key to that. And so we're looking to form a coalition of employees and community partners to gain an understanding of what they see in good diversity and what they may be able to tell us would be good practices. And so the fulcrum of this program is to make our culture a reflection of our community and to make our community proud of our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. I look forward to ongoing conversations, and I think in our July meeting, I would love to come back before this body and really discuss the nuts and bolts of the program, because we believe by then we will have reflected on our past and be ready to go forward. Thank you, Chair Baker. Any question?
Yeah, I just have a thought is, I mean, Joe, have you looked at how we could increase the veteran spend, or, I mean, the hiring of veterans?
Yeah, I think the big one with it, I was thinking the same thing, Bobby, is for the veterans, you sort of have to break it down by demographics within the veteran community. You'll have some folks, ladies and gentlemen, or ladies and men that have been in for 3 years at a one-year hitch, let's say, and then are out. Those are ripe for getting a training program for competencies needed to say, you know, be within the JEA workforce. You got the other class that may have been in a little bit longer, not retirement, so under 20 years. Now, they have a pretty specific skill set, so then we probably need to look at, okay, that skill set they have, what can we do to tailor it more for, you know, coming on board quicker, say, with whatever job capacities are in JEA. And then you have the retirees. Their skill set, they've got a great set of expertise, and that one's not so much as retraining, but then seeing, does that specific skill set that they have expertise in fit where it might fit in within JEA. So it sort of comes down to, I think, a level of how much training investment you need to get these great folks who will come on, you know, and do great work, but just accounting for how much training they need and what entry level you think they make a good fit for. And so, you know, that's sort of what I'm thinking on that.
Yeah,
thank you.
I want to thank David and Jay for doing this work. I know at last meeting I asked to see some numbers, and I'm pleased to see them. I am interested, though, in as we move forward, in kind of getting some more granular details in terms of what the plan is going to be. As I look at some of the numbers here, some of them are sobering. I think our largest, you know, kind of swath of folks are in our craft and skilled workforce area. And we've got some work to do there, and I think we know that in terms of some of the numbers that I'm seeing. So I'm excited that this is a focus, Jay, and I really look forward to seeing. You know, I know that we're doing a number of kind of things that as I kind of think about diversity, equity, and inclusion that are rather kind of offshoots that are disjointed. I know we're doing a lot, but I think to the extent that we begin to really kind of programmatically focus in terms of how we build pipelines internally, and then, you know, externally as well into the organization, I think we'll be better off forward. So first, you know, thank you all for your focus on this, and I look forward to seeing some forward-moving progress.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is Dr. Haley on the phone.
Good morning.
Morning. Sorry for being late. We have our magnet survey for our nursing team, so wanted to be there. I also want to thank everybody for this great work. I like the dashboard. One additional suggestion would to have a line for the board as well. So I think if we're going to hold the organization accountable for looking at our DEI initiatives, I would put the board as another line so that we always keep our eye on that part of the organization as well.
Thank you. Agree.
Thank you. That's a great idea.
Mr. Chair, just another thought too on that I think would help is as we're looking, really recruiting to get minorities into JEA, another key aspect of the program that we may want to consider is getting a good mentorship program or somebody who's been there, done that, and then give a testimony to encourage the younger minority workforce that it is achievable. Whatever those hurdles are, here's how they overcame them or whatever, but I think that go a long way too on showing that they can enter the workforce and be successful when they have examples to look at.
And Joe, in the past, we had partnered with local community colleges to do apprentice programs that fast path people into our system. I don't know if we're still doing that, but there's so many ways that we can improve these numbers. And Jay, in the future, is it possible to see industry numbers as well? This has been a very male-dominated field for many years, and I'm just curious as to where we stand against our peers, and if there's somebody who's doing a much better job than we are, we should reach back to them to see what their best practice would be if we know somebody, another utility.
I think that actually all the comments are that's the effort. I appreciate that. It lines up with the idea that David was talking about on how do we put together all these different pieces and put it in a place where we can all understand that, because we have a handful of different programs, and it is not just apprentice level, but I spoke to one of the high schools that has an engineering engineering technology program a couple of weeks ago. And we have people in the community doing a lot of those things. And yes, we can compare to industry. Yes, we can break down the veteran further to see what we're doing within the veteran. And David pointed out that the numbers we're comparing to here are actually the census numbers for all of Jacksonville. This is not compare the available workforce, and we need to do some of that too. But the numbers are I say this and it comes out wrong. They're secondary. They're the measures of what we're doing. What David is working on is a plan to make us keep this in front of us. We have, Dave, I'm going to say the numbers and then you can fix them. How's that? We have something like this afternoon, I'm going to go out to our agility testing course where over this week and next week, we have something in the neighborhood of 1,500. Is that 1,000, David? People.
14 and change, yes.
1,400 people that have applied to come to work at JEA and are going through agility training to be sure that they can. It's more complicated than this, but one of the things you have to be sure of is you're not afraid of heights and that you can climb a pole and you can do all the physical things that have to happen. 1,400 people, 19 positions.
Wow.
Wow.
So we are still a place people want to work, and we need to get in front of the right groups to be sure that we are offering the opportunity to work to all the right people. And so I think we're lined up with that, and I appreciate the feedback and the concern that you all have had from the first time that I met each one of you individually to today. So thank you for that support, and we'll continue to keep on keeping this in front of us.
I could just offer one more additional thing, kind of to Marty's point, and I'm hearing the work that we're doing. I just want to make sure that we focus not only on access from folks that want to join our company, but also that we're creating pipelines for opportunities within the organization. As I see, some of the numbers around, the manager, specialist, and director in particular, we need to make sure that we're dually focused on access for folks that want to join. But then once folks, are become a part of the JEA family, that we're creating pipelines and opportunities for advancement, particularly in some of our management spaces. So I'm sure you all will be, developing some structures and frameworks for that.
I hope that we are sure we're going to be doing that, but I appreciate you bringing it up, because that is the number that is kind of the most glaring, maybe not might be fair exactly, but it is an issue that says, are we doing the right talent planning, which we talk about, how do we make sure that we're doing the talent planning like we ought to make those decisions, because we should be able to do some of these things internal. We can't just go externally. There's very strong, capable people in our organization that we need to give opportunities to.
And Dr. Haley's point is well made. Board composition is a tiny bit out of our control, given that we're appointed. So it may be, Mr. Chair, that we look to passing a board resolution saying it's our goal that we represent the ratepayers in our communities, and we present that resolution when we are in a board member search, just to memorialize our conversation and our commitment to board diversity.
How does that work as far as, is it when somebody's term expires, are we asked for input, or is it just the mayor and now the council that
I am sure that with your involvement in the community, that people would be interested in your input. But I don't know that there's a formal process for us to have input from this board, but we certainly can look into that. Jody, do you know any history or where?
Yeah, historically, it's been the mayor's office that had selected and promoted the board members without much solicitation of thought from the current existing boards, but not to say that it.
There is a difference now, though, because the new charter does have some expectation that there is somebody either represented from the employees or directly somebody who used to be an employee or someone who is supported by the employees and recommended. And I think that we can use that as the kind of the jumping off point to do some sort of resolution to encourage that.
Just a way to memorialize the conversation and our commitment. I think Dr. Haley made a very, very strong point.
Is it appropriate? I mean, it's great to say we're gonna do it. Why don't we do it? I mean, is there any reason that we shouldn't have that resolution today?
Well, only that we can probably be more thoughtful in the wording of the resolution if we bring it back to you at the next meeting.
Will you do that?
Yes, sir.
Is that okay with you all?
That's good to me.
Great, great. Thank you, David. Now we'll move to customer loyalty. Sheila, J.D. Power.
While we're waiting for Sheila, what a great visual.
No.
Yes.
Picture? Excitement.
Good morning, Chair Baker and Board of Directors. I'm so excited to share the results of the second wave of the J.D. Power survey. Our scores increased by 72 points since December of 2020. The overall customer satisfaction score of 766 during this survey period was the second highest score of any survey period in our 9 years of participating in the J.D. Power survey. While we are certainly celebrating the recovery in the eyes of our customers, there is also the recognition that one survey period does not a trend make. However, we're hopeful about better days ahead, and the fact that our scores increased so substantially this wave is a testament to the focus and dedication of our employees across the organization. As background, there are 4 survey periods during the year, which begins in October and ends in August. The scores from every survey period are averaged to determine the year-end result. So if we average the first and second survey periods, that yields a year-to-date score of 730, which places us in the 4th quartile and below our corporate goals. Although we know it will take time to restore public trust, we are steadfast in our belief that our focus on the things that matters to our customers will continue to yield improved overall satisfaction. These charts illustrate our ranking relative to other utilities in the South mid-size category. This way, our customers' scores placed us just above the midpoint of other utilities. In our group, the index score comparison shows how we've trended in each J.D. Power driver of customer satisfaction over the last 4 years. And this period, our scores were highest in every driver of customer satisfaction. But I'd like to highlight 4 of them: power quality and reliability, billing and payment, and customer care scored above 800 on a 1,000-point scale. I said 4, I highlighted 3. This slide shows, this chart reflects our performance relative to peer utilities in several key areas that impact overall customer satisfaction. Those areas include energy efficiency, conservation programs, rate stability, and first contact resolution, or the level of effort our customers have to exert to fulfill a request, have a question answered, or an issue resolved. I'll just highlight 2 of the areas of customer satisfaction: first contact resolution and perfect power. 95% of the customers using one of our digital channels responded that we resolved their inquiry the first time. Our teams continue to focus on improving ease and convenience at every touch point, and in particular, interactions by phone. 61% of our customers reported perfect power during the survey period, meaning they did not experience an outage at all during the first 3 months of the year. Absent of major storms and dramatic outages, performance in this factor often rests on how JEA communicates and handles customer requests when those outages occur. Plans are underway to update and enhance outage communications and alerts, including expanded use of text messaging, which J.D. Power and other sources indicated are preferred by customers. And we know that a major outage event can become an opportunity for JEA to restore customer trust and value through the quick resolution of service and the timely, proactive communications throughout the event. So, why did our scores increase so dramatically? Well, we had a customer education and engagement campaign, new leadership announcement. We focused on reducing the number and duration of power and water outages. We're now on Nextdoor, providing announcements and information that our customers deem valuable. We continue to support the community's recovery efforts with payment extensions and deposit considerations. And every day we're focusing on affordability through customer alerts and leak notifications. Each month, I provide feedback from our customers to each of you in the presentation, and I share both positive and negative mentions. While our customers still rank JEA at the top of the national J.D. Power survey with the most negative media coverage, our customer service initiatives, communication strategy, leadership messaging, and employee engagement efforts have together served to reinforce who we are to our customers. Throughout the pandemic, our team continued to serve the community through volunteerism. And hats off to Vancia Fuller and the entire community engagement team for being as creative as they have been in helping to keep us engaged. This note arrived from a customer whose brother-in-law is a resident at the ARC Jacksonville Village. For those of you that aren't familiar, the ARC Jacksonville's mission is to serve and advocate for individuals with intellectual and developmental differences to achieve their full potential and to participate in community life. This letter reads, my brother-in-law is a resident at the ARC Jacksonville Village. On Saturday, he received a nice handwritten Easter greeting card from the good folks at JEA. Like everyone, he loved getting personal mail and was very appreciative. The gentleman asked that we share this with the good folks at JEA for our community outreach efforts. And the ARC is top on his wife's and his list. JEA's involvement with the ARC is super. If you can read the card, it says, Happy Easter to my peeps from your friends at JEA. This event, along with other activities, help us to remain connected to the community that we serve. I'm so grateful to be a part of this team, grateful to be a JEA employee for 18 years, and will continue to do our best to serve our community. That concludes my presentation. Are there any questions for me?
Questions of Sheila?
I just got a comment if I could, and I gave Jay a heads up. And Sheila, by the way, thank you for your input. But along with customer satisfaction, 2 weeks ago in a Times Union, there was a guest columnist who called on JEA to end its environmental masquerade with respect to environmental stewardship. The author also describes JEA's tepid commitment to renewable energy. While I appreciate the legitimate concern for our environment and the vital role JEA has in this extremely important issue, I do take exception to the incorrect masquerade characterization. When has JEA pretended to be serious about acting on greenhouse gas emissions and other environmental issues and acted contrary under this board's current watch and also under JEA current senior leadership? It hasn't. By 2025, JEA will have reduced its carbon emissions by 60%, as Jay said earlier. We're on a solid glide path with respect to renewables and Plant Vogtle and our Solar Smart program. JEA was issuing a request for proposals to develop an integrated resource plan that will be used to determine JEA's long-range energy strategy and supply. JEA was also recognized by T&D World for leadership in integrating intermittent renewable energy resources without compromising power quality and reliability. The author applauds utility companies that have committed to 100% renewable power sources by 2050 and contrasts that with JEA's tepid commitment to renewable sources. To all those utility companies committing to 100% renewables by 2050, all the power to them. As a JEA board member, I guard against making aspirational commitments that I cannot back up with valid data, like the aforementioned examples. That's being pragmatic, not tepid. I'm convinced JEA is committed to a vital glide path to be environmentally responsible and make every effort to achieve net zero and 100% renewable as quickly as technically feasible. We must remain vigilant on developing those technologies' capabilities sooner rather than later, and simultaneously guard against making promises we can't guarantee in delivering.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. I mean, I read the same article, and I really appreciate, and I think that should find its way in the media that we responded. So thank you.
My pleasure.
Comment and question, if I may. So first of all, congratulations. Well done. I mean, really strong results, particularly in light of the ongoing headwinds of media coverage. So well done. Congratulations. And obviously some very specific things that have been done to affect these results. It's not luck, right? So well done. The question would be, so, you know, we see the comparative performance relative to the South midsize cohort, and then we see a number of areas in which we're outperforming that cohort, which is great. My question is, if you look at those that are outperforming us, again, with the caveat that I doubt they have the headwinds of the media exposure that we face, but having said that, is there a similar slide to this one that would show where those organizations that are yet above us are outperforming us that might lead to some additional initiatives that we could take on or that you could take on to further drive performance northward.
Yeah, Sheila, I'm going to let you tackle that one. The JD Power, one of the things that they have is a lot of data, and we can, we have slides and data that shows both the ones that we're outperforming and the ones that we're underperforming in, and then Sheila and her team can start looking at how we can improve. Does that make sense to you, Sheila? Is that on track?
Yes, absolutely. Corporate citizenship is one area where we are focusing our efforts to improve the perceptions of the organization, of the community, and regain that trust. That's where one of the largest gaps exists. And the other is in the area of affordability. And we recognize that we can do more to provide information to our customers in a way that makes sense to them. You know, what they're consuming, what that bill is going to look like at the end of the month if there are no changes in their consumption patterns. Essentially, it just means eliminating the element of surprise and helping our customers to keep those bills as low as they possibly can.
But it also is something that I think we can bring to you so you can see see where that is. I think, at least from my perspective, I was excited about the progress this particular month and wanted to show the places that we're doing really well. It turns out this is not the part that Sheila spends most of her time focused on, is the ones that we're doing really well. It is that gap that we're trying to make up. So we'll get that to you as well. And I appreciate that when you tell me, you look at me and say, congratulations, good job. It's not me. This is actually across the entire organization. This is not something that happens with me or Sheila or anybody in the leadership team alone. We get to be part of that, but it is every single employee and interactions that they have with every single customer every single day. So thank you for your comments.
Yeah, well said.
I don't want to lose Joe's point, though. You know, we've been as a body together, what, a year, I think? Wow. Somewhere about 6 months ago, we started challenging staff to speak in terms that people could understand. You did it earlier, 1.7 million cars annually. Yes. So I think, Joe, that we haven't done a good job articulating in non-engineering ways what our impact to the environment has been. And I would just challenge us to continue to say those things so that people understand. 1.7 million cars being removed from our roads, and I think you said annually? That's something that the people reading the newspaper can understand, but we haven't, in all fairness to them, we haven't been sharing that message in a way that I think they can understand it.
I think Joe's piece, I mean, I think what you've done should be in the newspaper. I mean, I think you did a great job, and I mean, you and Jay might improve on some of it, but it hits at the heart that we are committed to this. We've done a great job, and we are going to be a leader in this effort. So I really appreciate your thoughts there.
Jay, it would seem that that letter is an opening for us to maybe go to the editorial board and have a real sit down with them about what we're doing, what are the good things that are happening here, what are our focuses on environment, service. Nobody ever says anything about there's been no rate increases for, what, 8 or 10 years, and there may be some in the future. But if you look at the ratings, you know, the affordability, we don't do very well on. And how can you do better than no rate increases for 10 years? So I think we ought to be very proactive as far as telling our story, and there might be a better way than going to the editorial board, but that's a start for sure. And I think we should talk today when we're interviewed by the media and ask them what they think would be the most effective way to get our story out.
Mr. Chair, if in fact we do do something with the editorial board or whatever, if there's unanimity here, I certainly would like there to be something that speaks to all of us as a board, versus Joe or even Jay. I mean, I think we probably have unanimity here. There needs to be something that I think represents a statement from this body towards what our position is in terms of where we are. So I would just I can't speak for anyone else, but if there's unanimity, I think we ought to make a statement collectively.
I think that's a great thought, but I think we should take this, as John said, this should be a start of us selling, and as Marty says, making sure everybody understands what our commitment is. 1.7 million cars resonates with most people. And I think we should not only going to the editorial board, but move forward that we are, because I think that will help with perception in the community of who we are and that we are leading. So that's my thoughts, Jay.
And not be defensive. I mean, this isn't, this is just saying, hey, maybe we're being a little misunderstood. This is what our impact has been.
I think it's a great point. In a way, it's a gift, because if
it's an opening.
Right. If this is in any way representative of other misperception, then we have an opportunity to correct it, and we wouldn't have known about it otherwise. And, I further think there could be a sort of steady cadence of telling the story. I mean, reliability and safety are two fantastic things that I think people need to know more about.
I think that you all are hitting every point that we need to do, and this particular thing became more inflammatory because it says we're a masquerade, or however that was worded. And that's frustrating, because there's nothing that could be further from the truth about what we are about. And to your point, we have the perfect power number was really good this time, and some of the data shows that our reliability is not as good as other utilities, except it is maybe even better than some people that claim to be very reliable. And so our balance is to be able to get the real story out and do all of the right things, not to try to cover something that makes it look like it's a spin, or we're going to get factual, real information out, which is what you're asking for. And I appreciate this very much, that during this discussion, my text from Sheila says, I'm on it. So Sheila's got this, we've got this, and we'll get back to you with how to package something. But it's not a single, I don't remember, I would like to give credit to the person who said this. It's not a single thing. It's got to be a series of activities. It's got to be well thought out. It is not just a response. Really, it's not a response to that editorial. This is, how do we make sure that our story is in the public in the right way to our customers and to other stakeholders in the region. So I think there's a lot more to come with that, and it'll come out over time. It needs to be not just a single piece. In part because in order to keep on doing the good things we're doing, we may have to make adjustments in our rates. Mm-hmm. Because that might be the right thing to do too.
No, but we are facing Vogel. It is coming online, and it is going to cost more. And I don't think we should be, again, defensive. We should be offensive of that whole situation. Is for how many years we hadn't had increases, but this is,
right. And it's a non-carbon emitting source. Yes. It is exactly what what we were looking for. It provides base level zero carbon emission.
I will invite all of you to join the Finance and Audit Committee meeting where we'll be discussing that in detail with budget.
If we talk about this much more, you're going to ask for us to have the Finance and Audit Committee even more often.
No, I think we're good.
Okay, thank you for bringing that up. That's a great discussion, and I think, as you say, you're on it.
Yes, sir.
But let's end this conversation with going back to that picture for our rank and file. Just, it's amazing work what you do every day, and I just wanted to say thank you for your efforts.
Okay, Wayne Young, can you talk about the St. Johns River Water Management District's minimum flows issue?
Yes, sir. Good morning, Chair Baker and directors. The purpose of the resolution in your package is to obtain board approval for the CEO to negotiate with the St. Johns Water Management District on a recovery strategy for lakes impacted by regional water use, including JEA's consumptive use permit. The resolution also requests board approval for the CEO to submit a petition, if necessary, to engage in formal administrative arbitration to address the recovery strategy. Though the recovery strategy has been approved, the implementation will not occur until after a public hearing that is scheduled for May 11th. In the meantime, the utility group, whose membership you see on the slide there, will continue dialogue with the district to modify the strategy. However, if progress is not being made towards implementing the strategy, a petition must be submitted no later than May 3rd to delay strategy implementation and allow for further discussion through arbitration. JEA recognizes that there is a need for a strategy to address the issues associated with the lakes. We support engagement with that as well as the other utilities in the group. And we also very strongly support a project that's been designed to address that issue. We need more time to further discuss implementations that could be brought about by the current strategy, where ambiguity in language presents possible operational and financial consequences. So we're requesting that the board approve the resolution you see in your package, and I am available for any questions that you might have.
Questions of Wayne?
And Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, Office of General Counsel too would have to take a look at the petition before it was filed, and we'll get the necessary approval from OGC if we have to go the route of a petition to be filed in an administrative petition.
Are you looking for a motion, Jody, or what?
We need a motion and any discussion.
Move it.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Jody, does your comment, does the resolution that's in our thing adequately cover what you want, or do you want an amendment?
The resolution, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the resolution is appropriate. It's just giving this board the authorization of allowing a petition to be filed. It doesn't really need the language of the OGC in the actual resolution.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimously passed. Now we'll move into business excellence. Russell, can you talk to us about the monthly financial and operations report?
I sure can. Good morning, Chair Baker and board members. I'm Russell Caffey, and I'm the controller here at JEA. I'll be presenting this month's operations report. As we move through the presentation, we jump around a lot, so please stop me if you guys have questions. First, we look at electric sales. On the right side of the slide, you'll notice electric sales are up 2% year to date this fiscal year. That 2% increase is a result of 2% customer growth and above average degree days. In the middle of the slide, you'll notice customer accounts being up 2%, which is a result of residential accounts being up 9%. That 9% is offset by commercial and industrial being down 3% and 4%. Degree days are higher than last fiscal year and are above the 30-year average. For the year, we're still forecasting an increase of 1% growth in sales over last year, which is 12,313,368 megawatts.
Question is, I mean, we're going into the big electrical months. You still don't think we'll get a 2% increase from what we did last year?
Well, with the industrial and commercial, just right now, this is what we're comfortable with. So
Yeah,
we don't think it's going to offset it enough.
Russell, I think
Get it to 2%.
I think you hit that exactly right. It's we may see some changes because of the as we are coming out of COVID and there's some other changes, but we don't know exactly what the commercial market in particular is going to look like. Residential has continued to be up, and so the way we're doing this right now, we use our budgeted amount for the remainder of the year. It's one of the things we want to try to get better at is forecasting.
Yep.
But 1.1% for the year is our best guess using that.
That's right.
So we will not be 2%.
Yeah.
This is where we expect to be right now, and it is so much weather dependent and depending on what the industrial and commercial side is.
Russell, will you continue?
Yep. Moving to the water sales on the right side, you'll see our water sales are down 6% compared to FY20 year to date. Residential and commercial sales are down 2% and 4%, but irrigation is down 25%. Irrigation is down as a result of higher rain days than prior year. We have a 2.5% customer growth, but we're forecasting a 2% decrease in sales for the year. Forecast for electric currently has revenue projected to be up $38 million as a result of the May fuel credit and higher unit sales. As you move down to expenses, fuel expenses are up $55 million as a result of higher fuel prices, and O&M is only $1 million higher than last year. On the debt side, fiscal year 21 debt retirement of $107 million was paid out of capital balances, and the FY21 CapEx forecast of $187 million will be funded with current year revenues. The water wastewater forecast, we are projecting a reduction in system sales revenue of $1 million. On the expense side, O&M expenses will decrease $5 million. And our FY21 CapEx forecast has been revised to fund the $248 million with current year revenues and capital fund balances.
On the capital
Corporate
and
performance
sewer,
back.
yeah, have you gotten comfort of where these projects are and where the spend is?
So we have two different issues. The short term, I'm comfortable that in the largest amount, a third of our dollars are coming from 9 significant projects, and that makes it something that is controllable. What I am not comfortable with yet is the size and scope of the things that we don't know yet, like the reclaim and some of the impacts that we might have from outside sources. And we're working hard to develop the right team and the leadership to be able to execute. The numbers are big. We've got, and so we're getting there. Comfort might be too strong. Getting comfortable is
More comfortable.
We're headed in the right direction, and the team's getting a better handle on what needs to be done. Yes.
Okay,
Thanks, Russell.
Okay. Our corporate performance factors are currently projected to pay out 3.3% based on our pay for performance plan. On the top left, we are exceeding our safety goal at 0.68 RIR, which is recordable incident rate. As we move over to the right, we currently aren't meeting our customer satisfaction goals. As we just heard from Sheila, we're working every day to improve those numbers. On the bottom row, We're currently projected to exceed cost control goals for electric, water, and wastewater. Our electric operations scorecard changes from last month to this month to note. In the middle of the page, there's an unpleasant green color. That's the SAIDI duration. That's the system average interrupting duration index, and it's up from 78 last month to 80 this month. As you move down to the red bubble, the generation fleet reliability forced outage is up from 1.61% last month to 3.18 this month. This is the result of limiting a unit due to a transformer problem. We then ran reduced capacity until there was an outage window to repair the transformer. For the water wastewater scorecard, on the right side of the slide, you'll notice all the statuses are the same as last month. And as you go down the right side of the slide, you'll notice 3 unpleasant looking green bubbles. The first one is related to our forecasted sales, which we covered earlier. The second is unplanned outages. We had 7 water main breaks this month. That resulted in 186 customer outages. There was an additional 3 outages that were the result of third-party damage. The last off green color dot is the sanitary sewer overflows. There were 6 last month, 4 from third-party damage, 1 was design failure, and 1 was lift station. And then the last item on the page, just so we can end on a good note, is there were no major events last month for water pressure average minutes. And if you have any questions, I can take those.
Any questions? Thank you very much. That's a great report. Now,
Can I say something really quickly?
Please.
Sorry. Russell, I appreciate the report. I will be using unpleasant-looking green bubbles whenever we're referring to things that are not as positive as they need to be from here on out. I appreciate the way you said that. So, thank you.
I thought it was
unpleasant-looking green bubble.
green.
Yes. Thanks, Russell.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the revisions to the procurement code policy. Jenny McCullum.
Good morning, Chair Baker and the rest of the board members. I am Jenny McCullum, the Chief Procurement Officer and Director of Procurement Services and Inventory Planning for JEA. So this is the first time I've presented to this board, and just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I've been with government for almost 18 years, and 10 of those have been with JEA in various roles. So I'm extremely happy to be with you all today, and I want to thank you for allowing me time to present the proposed procurement code revisions. And I'd like to start with just a quick summary of what the document is used for and a brief history and why we amend it from time to time. So the procurement code is a policy document that governs all JEA purchases and related administrative activities and is supplemented by our operational procedures, which is more of a daily desk procedure for the procurement staff. Originally, the procurement code was adopted by a board resolution and has been updated multiple times in keeping up with best practices. The proposed 2021 revision streamlined the procurement code and provides updates to include recommendations from an outside consultant and new requirements from the charter changes, which will improve JEA's ability to make procurement decisions in the best interest of our customers. This slide summarizes the changes in the JEA charter that pertain to the procurement code, which primarily covers annual reporting requirements to the mayor and to city council, which we believe should be mirrored in the procurement code. Currently, our code requires a quarterly report to the board that you all see on the consent agenda and covers all sole source and emergency purchases and our procurement appeals board decisions, if any, from the past quarter. Those items will still be included in the new reporting requirements, but it will also expand the scope to include the results of an annual survey taken by our vendors to provide feedback on the openness, transparency, and fairness of our processes. As the Chief Procurement Officer, I will be responsible for creating that report. And so every year I will share it with the JEA Board as information around the October-November timeframe, and then we'll send it to the City of Jacksonville to fulfill our charter requirements. I will also be responsible for reviewing the procurement code once every 2 years and will present findings or revisions to the board if there are any at that time. The benefit to updating the procurement code, I know this is probably the top question on your mind, is to maintain the current and best practice government policies and processes for JEA so that we can achieve the maximum value from our procurement activities. So I've listed on this slide the significant changes to the code, but I want to take a moment to expand on a few of them. First, I want to mention that we currently have 5 different methods for non-competitive or limited source procurements, where there's only one justifiable source. The supplies or services must be a certain type, brand, make, or manufacturer due to criticality of the item or compatibility within JEA's utility system, which may not be obtained from multiple sources. The services could be a follow-up service that may only be done efficiently and effectively by the vendor that rendered the initial services, and finally, emergency services. So this update will consolidate those methods into single source and emergency purchases only. This change will simplify the terminology where there is only one vendor, and it'll align with the benchmarking results with other public entities in Florida, and that includes the City of Jacksonville. This is how they determine, or this is how they call their single source awards. They just lump it all into one. And just as a note, the procurement manages approximately $500 to $600 million annually for JEA. And our limited competition sole source emergency awards represent a range of about 8 to 10% of our total spend. So the majority of our spend is competitive, and there are multiple vendors that do participate. Next, I will touch on adding a few new sourcing methods, which include pilot projects, reverse auctions, and construction manager at risk, which we call CMAR, and program manager at risk, which we call PMAR. The pilot projects will allow for our business unit to try new products and services on a trial basis in limited amounts and for a limited period of time in order to determine whether to proceed with a formal solicitation of those supplies or services. The reverse auction will be used for products where there may be many vendors that can bid on multiple items, and it would be done publicly in real time to achieve the lowest price possible for JEA. So a good example of that would be janitorial supplies. And then lastly, the CMAR and the PMAR methods are different methods to procure engineering and construction services and align with the state of Florida processes. And the last update that I want to highlight is to remove the ability for vendors to use the solicitation and awards protest process for contract disputes. So once a contract is in place, it is a legal binding document, and the vendors will not be able to dispute the contract terms through procurement administrative remedies. All of the other updates, they fall in line with the best practice survey, or they reduce administrative efforts by simplifying the processes. So we have included the clean version of the updated procurement code for your review in the packet and can provide a red line version if desired. And if there are any questions about the updates, I would be happy to take those. Otherwise, we are asking the board for approval for the 2021 procurement code revisions.
I did have a question. You mentioned the removing the ability to protest for contract disputes, but as I read the next item, it says the chief procurement officer's decision on informal procurements is final. I mean, help me understand what the process for appeals is, and what the mechanisms are, because I'm a little confused.
Okay, yes, no problem. So we have the ability to protest solicitations before we come back off the street. It's on the street. If there are questions about our specs, people can ask questions. They can also protest those specs while they are still on the street. So that is still an ability for the vendors, and will be, going forward. They also have the ability to protest an award. So after the process is over and we send out an intent to award to a vendor, they have a certain period of time, the vendors, to protest that award. Once we have awarded a contract and the vendor has agreed to our terms and conditions and we have executed a contract, they will have to abide by that binding contract. Currently, we allow them to dispute contract terms if we need, for example, if we need to assess liquidated damages for a project that is late. Currently, they can appeal that, and this will remove the ability for them to do that. They can, of course, seek other remedies, but they would not go through a procurement appeal, if you will, through that process.
Okay, thank you.
Does that help?
Jenny, I don't understand why we want to do that.
So the administrative efforts that go into, there's two phases for a protest. There is one that comes to myself first, and it's an informal chief procurement officer review. And if a vendor does not like the results of that, they can appeal to the procurement appeals board. They will still have the ability to do that, on the two phases up front. But from a contract execution standpoint, and this aligns with the city and other utilities across the state of Florida, it doesn't make sense for them to be able to dispute a binding legal contract. And the administrative efforts that go into the appeals process it's quite lengthy, and not only for the VPs, for the procurement group and the Office of General Counsel. And so we want to streamline those processes to where it makes, the most impact and the best use of administrative time for JEA, allowing them to still do that up front. But once we have a contract, they would have to abide by our contract.
And Mr. Chair, Julie Davis is on the phone too from OGC. I'm not sure if she wanted to weigh in on this discussion about the administrative remedy rights that folks have through the purchasing code currently expand to once you got an executed contract. And that administrative remedy is what's being taken away, that they can go to court if they've got an issue with the binding legal contract, versus using our procurement process as an administrative remedy. And we had an outside consultant actually look at the purchasing code too and made that specific recommendation to us and to Jenny's team. Julie, I don't know if you have anything to add on that specific point to get the board comfortable with the removal of that administrative remedy on an executed contract.
Yeah, so Julie Davis, Office of General Counsel. The contract itself will spell out the process for dispute resolution if there's a contractual dispute once the contract is in place. It's really no longer a procurement matter. It's more of a contract management matter. And those details are spelled out in the contract itself, how that process would work. And if the dispute can't be resolved, under the terms of the contract, then of course, someone could always resort to filing in a court. But there is a process in the contract for resolving those disputes. And the idea, and that the outside consultant confirmed that this is much more in line with what other municipalities and other governmental entities do in their procurement codes, and having the procurement protest process apply to contractual disputes was actually very unusual to have that in JEA's code. So it just made more sense to bring JEA's code in line with what most other governmental entities are doing. And in that way, too, there's no conflict between what the contract says and what the procurement protest procedure might say. That's all.
Thank you.
I'm comfortable with that.
I am
Thank
too.
you. I just wanted to make sure that we did have a protest process because it was hard to find in the document.
Okay, there is in your pre-read a motion,
There's a,
resolution. Can we have a motion to approve it?
and Mr. Chair, my apologies again. As we've been sitting here reading through the materials again, there's a couple of typos in the resolution that I wanted to point out. We are switching, I'm not sure if the board recognized this, instead of using a memo practice, if there's an action item, we're going to be bringing resolutions to the board. We converted some of the memos to resolutions, and in that conversion, there's a T that is capitalized in the first whereas clause that should not be. And then the actual authorization that you're asking for is for the board. It says grants approves the revisions. It should say the board approves the revisions to the JEA procurement code. And so I would ask that as the board takes action on this resolution, that it's in an amended form to cure those couple of typos.
So moved.
Is there a motion and a second of the amended resolution? Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. That's, I appreciate Julie and Jody, y'all going into that and explaining it. And thank you, Jenny. Is it now that we're going to go into a shade?
Yes, sir. So for the board and for the folks on the WebEx, the board is going to go into a shade portion of this meeting that's allowed by statute to discuss security and cybersecurity planning for JEA. We're going to actually physically get up and move to the 8th floor. There's a couple of presenters. There's a specific WebEx for the couple of presenters, and Julie Davis from OGC will be in attendance by WebEx. But we're going to close this portion of the meeting, go into closed session, and we'll be back in about an hour.
Okay.
Yep, we can go.
He's back in.
We're ready.
Ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any old or other new business? Is there anything anybody wants to talk about in open discussion? If that's the case, our next board meeting is May 25th, and we are adjourned.
Good job.
Great job.